Amy Mitchell stood at the viewport of the Earth diplomatic vessel, watching as the massive Zyraxian mothership grew larger in the distance. Her heart beat faster as she straightened her uniform one last time. As the lead xenobiologist on this mission, she carried the weight of humanity's first official contact with an advanced alien civilization. "Nervous?" asked Jack Nelson, stepping beside her. The commander's weathered face showed concern, but his voice remained steady. "Just aware of the stakes," Amy replied, tucking a strand of blonde hair behind her ear. "We've been preparing for this moment for years." The small diplomatic team gathered in the shuttle bay. 6 humans chosen to represent Earth in this historic meeting. The Zyraxians had made contact 3 months earlier, their signals reaching Earth with an invitation to meet. Their technology was clearly advanced beyond human capabilities, but they had seemed peaceful, even curious. The shuttle detached from the main ship with a gentle shudder. Amy watched through the window as they approached the alien vessel. It resembled a giant metallic sea creature, with a sleek central body and what looked like fins extending outward. The surface gleamed with an iridescent blue-green material unlike any metal Amy had seen before. "Remember the protocols," Commander Nelson said to the team. "No sudden movements. Follow their lead on greetings. Dr. Mitchell will handle initial communications since she's most familiar with the language patterns from their transmissions." Amy nodded, touching the translator device at her throat. The device contained all the information they had gathered about the Zyraxian language from the limited communication so far. Their shuttle entered a large opening that appeared in the side of the alien ship. The interior was surprisingly bright, lit with a soft blue light that seemed to come from the walls themselves. The shuttle settled onto the landing pad with a soft thump. "Here we go," whispered Sam Porter, the team's anthropologist. "First contact." The shuttle door opened with a hiss. Amy took a deep breath and stepped forward as planned, leading the group into the alien vessel. The air felt slightly thicker than Earth's, with a faint scent like ozone after a thunderstorm. 3 tall figures waited for them. The Zyraxians stood at least 7 feet tall, with slender bodies covered in what looked like smooth, pale green skin. Their faces had large, almond-shaped eyes that shimmered with an inner light. Where a human would have a nose, they had only slight ridges, and their mouths were small and lipless. Amy raised her hand in the greeting gesture they had practiced, palm forward and open. "We come in peace as representatives of Earth," she said, clearly, the translator at her throat converting her words into the musical tones of the Zyraxian language. The central Zyraxian stepped forward. Unlike the others, this one wore a type of armor that gleamed with the same iridescent quality as the ship's exterior. "I am Vexnar, commander of the Zyraxian Exploration Fleet," the alien replied, its voice translated into flat, computerized English through their devices. "We welcome you aboard our vessel." Amy felt a wave of relief. The translations were working. The weeks of studying the Zyraxian transmissions had paid off. "Thank you for inviting us," Amy said. "We're honored to establish this first contact between our worlds." Vexnar's large eyes studied her intently. Something in that gaze made Amy uneasy, but she maintained her diplomatic smile. "You will follow us to the meeting chamber," Vexnar said. It wasn't a request. The diplomatic team was led through curved hallways that seemed to pulse with light. Amy noticed there were no sharp angles anywhere in the ship's design. Everything flowed in organic curves and spirals. They entered a large circular room. In the center stood a table made of the same strange material as the ship's hull. Around it were tall chairs that seemed designed for the Zyraxians' long limbs. "Please be seated," Vexnar said, gesturing to the chairs. The team sat down, adjusting to the unusual height of the furniture. Amy noticed more Zyraxians entering the room, taking positions around the walls. Their numbers seemed excessive for a diplomatic meeting. "We have studied your world for some time," Vexnar began, remaining standing. "Your transmissions have taught us much about humans." "We are glad to hear that," Commander Nelson said. "We hope this meeting will be the beginning of beneficial exchanges between our peoples." Vexnar's mouth moved in what might have been a smile, but it didn't reach those large, shimmering eyes. "Beneficial?" the alien repeated. "Yes. We believe this meeting will be very beneficial. Amy felt a chill run down her spine. Something was wrong. The translator had caught a tone in the Zyraxian's voice that didn't match the words. Suddenly, Vexenar slammed a long-fingered hand onto the table. The surface lit up with swirling patterns of light. You humans believe yourselves ready to join the galactic community, Vexenar said, all pretense of diplomacy gone from its voice. But you are primitive, dangerous, unpredictable, Commander. Nelson stood quickly. If we've given offense in some way. Your existence is the offense, Vexenar cut him off. Your species develops too quickly. Your weapons advance faster than your wisdom. The Council has determined you must be controlled before you become a threat. The doors to the chamber slid shut with a hiss. The Zyraxians around the walls moved forward, raising devices that looked disturbingly like weapons. This isn't a diplomatic meeting, Amy realized aloud. It's a trap. Very perceptive human female, Vexenar said. You will provide us with the information we need about Earth's defenses and capabilities. Commander Nelson activated his emergency beacon, a small device, hidden in his uniform. The signal would alert the Earthship that the diplomatic team was in danger. Run, he shouted. Chaos erupted in the chamber. The diplomats scattered as the Zyraxians fired their weapons. Instead of bullets or energy blasts, the weapons released clouds of purple gas. Amy felt her muscles seize up as she inhaled the gas. Her legs gave out, and she fell to the floor. Through blurring vision, she saw her teammates also collapsing. An explosion rocked the ship. The Earth vessel must have received Nelson's distress signal and taken action. Get them to the holding cells, Vexenar ordered, and prepare for departure. Amy felt herself being dragged across the floor. Her mind was foggy, but she fought to stay conscious. Another explosion, closer this time, caused the Zyraxians to stumble. The humans are attacking the docking bay, one of the aliens reported. The small vessel is attempting to prevent our departure. Separate them, Vexenar ordered, pointing to the diplomatic team. Take them to different sections. Amy was lifted by strong alien hands. Through a haze, she saw her teammates being carried in different directions. Commander Nelson was fighting the effects of the gas, struggling against his captors. Get to the emergency pods, Nelson shouted to his team before a Zyraxian struck him across the face. Amy felt herself being carried down a different corridor than the others. She tried to struggle, but her limbs wouldn't respond properly. A distant rumble shook the ship. The Earth vessel must be attempting a rescue. The female will come with me, Vexenar said, suddenly appearing beside Amy's captors. She showed the most understanding of our language. She will be useful. The last thing Amy saw before losing consciousness was Vexenar's face leaning close to hers, those strange shimmering eyes studying her with cold calculation. Your species will soon learn its place in the galactic hierarchy, the alien said softly. And you, human girl, will help us teach them. Amy woke to a throbbing pain behind her eyes. She tried to move her arms but found them secured to a cold metal surface. The room around her was dimly lit with the same blue light that seemed common throughout the Zyraxian ship. She was lying on something like an examination table, tilted upward so she could see most of the room. The chamber was circular, with strange equipment lining the walls. Some devices looked like medical instruments, but others had no purpose Amy could guess. The air smelled sterile, with an underlying scent like burnt copper. A door slid open, and Vexenar entered, followed by another Zyraxian wearing what looked like a lab coat. This new alien was slightly shorter than Vexenar, with paler skin and markings around its eyes. The human is conscious, the shorter Zyraxian noted, voice higher pitched than Vexenar's. Good, Kraltek. Begin your work, Vexenar ordered. Kraltek approached Amy, studying her with those large, shimmering eyes that seemed to see more than normal vision would allow. Where are my colleagues? Amy asked, her voice hoarse. The translator at her throat was gone, but the aliens seemed to understand her anyway. Some escaped in emergency pods, Vexenar said, moving closer. Others are being held elsewhere. Your commander Nelson led the escape. Loyal to the end, he tried to come back for you, but our ships drove him away. Amy felt relief knowing some of her team had escaped and that Jack was still out there. He wouldn't abandon her. He would find a way to come back. "What do you want from me?" she asked. Vexnar's mouth formed that cold, not quite smile again. "Information. Your species has developed too quickly. Our observations show you advancing from primitive combustion engines to spaceflight in less than a century. Such rapid development suggests hidden capabilities." "We don't have any hidden capabilities," Amy said. "Humans are just curious by nature. We learn quickly." "Lies," Kraltek interrupted, turning from a control panel. "Our council has tracked 17 species in this sector. None develop weapons technology at your rate. You must have assistance or resources you have not revealed." The scientist alien moved to stand over Amy, holding a small device that looked like a silver pen. When activated, it projected a holographic display of what Amy recognized as human DNA. "Your genetic structure is unremarkable," Kraltek said. "Yet your species accomplishes remarkable things. We will find out how." Vexnar stepped back. "I will return later. Learn what you can, Kraltek, but keep her alive. For now." After Vexnar left, Kraltek began preparing equipment. Amy pulled at her restraints, but they were completely solid. "You cannot escape," Kraltek said without looking at her. "And no one will hear you if you scream, though many do." Fear turned Amy's blood cold. "Listen to me. There's nothing to find. Humans don't have any special technology you don't know about. This is all a mistake." Kraltek ignored her, approaching with a device that ended in a needle-like point. "We will start with basic pain responses. Your neural pathways may reveal what your words hide." The pain began then. The needle device didn't break Amy's skin, but somehow sent waves of agony through her nerves. She bit her lip until it bled, determined not to give the alien the satisfaction of hearing her scream. "Interesting," Kraltek said, adjusting settings on the device. "Your pain threshold is higher than expected." Hours seemed to pass. Kraltek tried different devices, each producing a new type of pain. Some felt like fire running through her veins, others like ice crystals forming in her muscles. Through it, all the alien observed took notes and occasionally asked questions about Earth's defenses, weapon systems, and government structure. Amy gave nothing away. She recited star classifications in her head, focused on memories of her home in Colorado, counted backward from 1,000, anything to keep her mind from breaking. "You are stubborn for such a fragile species," Kraltek said, finally stepping back. The alien seemed frustrated. "Perhaps a different approach." The scientist left the room briefly, returning with something that looked like a metal helmet. "This will access your memories directly. You cannot hide information when we see it in your mind." Fear gave Amy new strength. She struggled violently against the restraints. You don't understand human biology. This could kill me." "That would be unfortunate, but acceptable," Kraltek replied coldly. "We have other specimens." Before the alien could place the helmet on her head, the door opened again. Vexnar returned, accompanied by 2 guards. "What progress?" the commander demanded. "The human resists conventional methods," Kraltek reported. "I was about to try direct neural scanning." Vexnar approached Amy, studying her bruised and bloodied form. "Impressive endurance, but pointless." The commander turned to a screen on the wall, activating it with a gesture. The screen showed Earth, beautiful and blue, as seen from space. "Our main fleet approaches your world now," Vexnar said. "Without the information we seek, we cannot determine how dangerous your species truly is. The Council has decided the safest action is elimination." Amy's heart sank. "You're lying. You can't have a fleet at Earth already." "Our ships travel through space in ways your science cannot comprehend," Vexnar said. "You have one final opportunity to save your people. Tell us what we need to know." Amy closed her eyes, tears running down her cheeks. She knew the right thing to do was to stay silent, but the thought of Earth's destruction was unbearable. "I'll tell you what you want to know," she whispered, hating herself for the words. "But I need proof your fleet is really there." Vexnar nodded to one of the guards who adjusted the screen. The image changed to show multiple Zyraxian ships in Earth orbit. But something about the image struck Amy as wrong. The continents weren't quite right. This wasn't a live feed, it was fabricated. "You're bluffing," Amy said, new determination in her voice. "That's not Earth. The land masses are wrong." Vexnar's face contorted with anger. The commander struck Amy across the face with a powerful blow. "Proceed with the neural scanner," Vexnar ordered Kraltek. "Maximum intensity. I want answers now." Kraltek hesitated. "Commander, at maximum intensity, the human will likely not survive the procedure. Then we will learn from her corpse," Vexnar snapped. "Do it." The metal helmet descended toward Amy's head. She closed her eyes, thinking of home, of Earth, of the team that had escaped, of Jack Nelson, who she knew would be planning a rescue even now. "I'm sorry," she whispered as the cold metal touched her skin. Pain, unlike anything she had experienced before, exploded through her mind. Amy's back arched off the table as her body convulsed. She could feel the machine tearing through her thoughts, memories, knowledge, all laid bare to the alien observers. Her heart raced, then stuttered, then began to fail as the machine overloaded her nervous system. The last thing Amy heard before darkness took her was Kraltek's clinical voice. "Subject's vital signs failing. Brain activity becoming erratic. Shutdown imminent," and then there was nothing. Kraltek stood over Amy's lifeless body, scanning it with various instruments. Vexnar watched from across the room, arms crossed, clearly displeased. "Time of death?" Vexnar asked coldly. "Approximately 12 minutes ago," Kraltek replied. The neural scanner overloaded her system. Human brains are apparently more fragile than our initial study suggested. "A waste," Vexnar said, approaching the table. "We gained nothing useful from her." Kraltek disconnected the neural scanner and removed the helmet from Amy's head. Her face was pale, with dried tears still visible on her cheeks. Her body showed the marks of hours of torture, bruises, small burns, and places where the skin had been punctured for testing. "Perhaps not a complete waste," Kraltek suggested. "We can still study her physiology. The Council will want a full autopsy report." Vexnar nodded. "Proceed. I want preliminary findings within the hour. I must report to the Council about this failure." The commander left the laboratory, leaving Kraltek alone with Amy's body. The scientist began preparing the autopsy tools, arranging them on a small table beside the examination platform. "A shame," Kraltek said to the empty room. "You were surprisingly resilient for such a primitive species." The scientist turned to a control panel, inputting commands to adjust the room's settings for the autopsy procedure. The lighting changed to a brighter, more clinical white, and a recording device descended from the ceiling. "Beginning preliminary autopsy of human subject," Kraltek spoke for the record. "Female, approximately 30 Earth years of age. Subject expired during neural scanning procedure." Kraltek picked up a scanner and moved it slowly over Amy's body, starting at her head and working downward. The device projected holographic images of her internal organs, bone structure, and circulatory system. "Interesting," the scientist murmured. "Even in death, there are unusual energy readings in the cerebral cortex, perhaps residual activity from the scanner." Kraltek made notes on a data pad, then selected a thin, sharp instrument from the table. But before the first incision could be made, something unexpected happened. The scanner in Kraltek's other hand began beeping rapidly. The scientist looked at the readings with confusion. "That's impossible," Kraltek whispered. The scanner showed a tiny spark of electrical activity in Amy's brain, then another, then more, spreading like a wildfire through her neural pathways. Kraltek dropped the cutting tool and stepped back, watching in disbelief as the holographic display showed Amy's brain coming back to life. The activity spread to her brainstem, then down her spine. And then, 37 minutes after her death had been confirmed, Amy Mitchell opened her eyes. Kraltek stumbled backward, knocking over the table of instruments. They clattered to the floor as the scientist pressed against the wall, watching in horror as Amy's chest began to rise and fall with resumed breathing. Amy blinked several times, her eyes focusing on the ceiling. She felt strange, disconnected from her body, yet more aware of it than she had ever been. The pain was gone. All of it. She turned her head slowly, taking in the room, the fallen instruments and the terrified Xeraxian pressed against the wall. Impossible, Kraltek whispered again. You were dead. Your brain activity ceased completely. Amy looked down at her, body still secured to the table. The restraints that had felt so solid before now seemed like a minor inconvenience. With a thought, not even a conscious decision, the locks clicked open. The metal bands retracted into the table. What are you? Kraltek asked, voice trembling. Amy sat up slowly, testing her limbs. They worked perfectly, though they felt somehow different, lighter, more responsive. She looked at her hands, turning them over. They appeared the same, but there was something new running through them, a energy she could feel but not see. I don't know, Amy said truthfully. Her voice was steady and clear, not the raspy, pain-filled whisper it had been before her death. But I'm still me. Kraltek lunged for a communication device on the wall. Amy felt the scientist's movement before she saw it. With reflexes she had never possessed before, she was across the room in an instant, her hand catching Kraltek's wrist before it could reach the device. Please don't, Amy said calmly. I need time to understand what's happening. Kraltek froze, those large eyes wide with fear. The neural scanner. It must have altered your biology somehow. This is unprecedented. Amy released the scientist's wrist and stepped back. The scanner killed me. I remember that clearly. I felt my heart stop. I felt my brain shutting down. Yes, Kraltek confirmed, rubbing the wrist Amy had grabbed. You were dead by all measurable standards, and now I'm not. Amy walked slowly around the laboratory, looking at the equipment with new eyes. She could somehow sense the energy flowing through the devices, could almost see the patterns of data and electricity. What are you going to do? Kraltek asked, still pressed against the wall. Amy stopped in front of a screen showing the ship's schematics. She hadn't noticed it before, but now she could read the Xeraxian symbols as if they were English. First, I need to understand what happened to me, she said. And then I need to find my people. A door slid open suddenly. 2 Xeraxian guards entered, weapons drawn. They had obviously been monitoring the room and had seen Amy moving around. Stop. Do not move, one guard commanded. Amy turned to face them. She felt no fear, only a strange calmness. The guards' weapons were pointed at her chest, but she somehow knew they couldn't harm her now. Please tell them to lower their weapons, Amy said to Kraltek. I don't want anyone to get hurt. She came back to life, Kraltek stammered, to the guards. She was dead, and then she wasn't. The guards exchanged glances but kept their weapons trained on Amy. Step away from the scientist, one ordered. Amy sighed. I'm not a threat to you. As she spoke, the lights in the laboratory flickered. The guards looked up in confusion. Amy felt it too, a strange connection between her thoughts and the ship's systems. When she focused on the lights, they dimmed further. When she thought about the guards' weapons, she could sense their power sources. With a thought, she deactivated them. The guards pressed their triggers, but nothing happened. They looked at their weapons in shock, then at Amy with growing fear. What, are you? One guard whispered, echoing Kraltek's earlier question. Amy walked to the door, the guards backing away from her. I'm just a human, she said. But I think your commander was right about one thing. You didn't understand what that means. She stepped into the corridor, the door closing behind her. Somehow she could sense the entire ship now, every room, every passenger, every system. She could feel Commander Nelson and the rescue team approaching in a small vessel, still hours away. And she could feel Vexnar, in the command center, unaware that everything had changed. Amy looked directly at a security camera in the corridor and smiled. It was time to show the Xeraxians exactly what they had created. Amy walked through the corridors of the Xeraxian ship with purpose. No one tried to stop her. Most Xeraxians fled at the sight of her, whispering to each other in their musical language. They called her the Revenant, the Undead One. Word of her return from death spread quickly through the ship. She didn't need directions. Somehow she could sense the entire vessel's layout in her mind. It was as if the ship's computer systems had become an extension of her consciousness. When she passed control panels, they lit up or flickered in response to her presence. Amy headed toward the central data core. She needed answers about what had happened to her, and that was where she would find them. As she approached a sealed door, she simply thought about it opening, and it did. The Xeraxian guards stationed there backed away, not daring to challenge. The data core was a vast chamber filled with crystalline structures that pulsed with blue-green light. No Xeraxians were present. They had evacuated the area when they realized where she was heading. Amy stood in the center of the room, surrounded by the alien technology. She closed her eyes and reached out with her mind. The connection was immediate and overwhelming. Information flowed into her consciousness: ship schematics, crew records, research data, and the collective knowledge of the Xeraxian Empire. And there, buried deep in ancient historical files, she found what she was looking for. Records of a long-extinct race called the Precursors who had seeded the galaxy with life eons ago. The Xeraxians had legends about these beings, stories of creatures who could transfer their consciousness between bodies and machines. The records spoke of experiments the Precursors had conducted, embedding dormant genetic sequences in various species. Most of these experiments were deemed failures and abandoned, but one species had shown particular promise: a primitive mammalian life form on a blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. Humans, Amy whispered, understanding dawning. They experimented on early humans. According to the records, the Precursors had theorized that extreme trauma, particularly experiences at the threshold between life and death, might activate these dormant genetic sequences. But they had disappeared before seeing the results of their work. The Xeraxians had discovered these records centuries ago but dismissed them as myths. They had no idea that their torture of Amy had triggered the very transformation the Precursors had designed. Amy withdrew from the data core, the information now permanently part of her. She turned as the door opened behind her. Vexnar stood there, flanked by armed guards. The commander's face showed a mixture of fear and fascination. "You should be dead," Vexnar said. "I was," Amy replied simply. "What are you now?" the commander asked, keeping a safe distance. "Something your people helped create," Amy said. "Though you didn't mean to. You pushed me past death, and something waiting in human DNA woke up." Vexnar's eyes narrowed. "The council must be informed of this development. You will come with me." Amy shook her head. "No, I'm leaving this ship. My people are coming for me, and you're going to let them dock without resistance." "You are still our prisoner," Vexnar insisted, though without much conviction. Amy sighed. With a thought, she accessed the ship's communication systems. Her voice echoed throughout the entire vessel. "This is Amy Mitchell speaking to all Xeraxian crew members. Your commanders have made a terrible mistake. They believed humans were primitive and needed to be controlled. They did not understand what they were dealing with." She paused, watching Vexnar's reaction. The commander stood frozen, realizing too late the extent of Amy's new abilities. "I am leaving this ship," Amy continued through the communication system. "Anyone who tries to stop me will fail. Anyone who tries to harm the human rescue vessel approaching will fail. It's time for your people to reconsider their position on Earth and humanity." Amy turned back to Vexnar. "I've accessed your weapon systems. They're now offline. Your engines are operating at minimal capacity. I've left you with basic life support and navigation, nothing more." "This is an act of war," Vexnar said, voice tight with anger. "No," Amy replied calmly. "This is me preventing one. Your people tortured me to death because you were afraid of what humans might become. You need to be afraid of what we already are." A voice came over her new connection to the ship's systems. A voice she recognized. "Xeraxian vessel. This is Commander Nelson of the Earth Rescue Ship. Respond immediately or we will take hostile action." Amy smiled. "Perfect timing, Jack." she whispered. She opened a direct channel to the Earth vessel. Commander Nelson, this is Amy Mitchell. I'm alive and in control of the Zyraxian ship systems. You can dock safely in Bay 4. No one will stop you. There was a pause, then Jack's shocked voice. Amy, how is this possible? We detected your life signs vanish hours ago. It's a long story, she said. I'll explain when you're here. Amy turned her attention back to Vexnar. Your council believed humans were developing too quickly, that we might become a threat. What they didn't realize is that we were fulfilling our evolutionary destiny. What happened to me might be rare now, but it won't be forever. What do you want? Vexnar asked, now visibly shaken. Take what you've learned back to your council. Tell them Earth is off limits. Tell them what happened when you pushed one human too far. Amy felt the Earth rescue vessel docking with the Zyraxian ship. She could sense Jack and the rescue team boarding, moving quickly through the corridors. No Zyraxians attempted to stop them. You realize we cannot allow this information to spread, Vexnar said quietly. If other species learn what humans are capable of, that's not your decision to make anymore, Amy replied. The door behind Vexnar opened. Jack Nelson stood there, weapon raised, with 5 Earth soldiers behind him. His eyes widened when he saw Amy. Amy, he breathed. You're alive. She nodded. More or less. Jack looked from Amy to Vexnar, confusion clear on his face. What's happening here? The ship's practically deserted. No one tried to stop us. I suggested they keep their distance, Amy said with a small smile. She walked past Vexnar to join Jack and the rescue team. We need to leave, she told them. There's a lot I need to explain, and the Earth government needs to prepare. Prepare for what? Jack asked, still staring at her in amazement. Amy glanced back at Vexnar. For the fact that everything just changed. Humanity isn't what we thought it was, and neither is our place in the galaxy. As they made their way back to the rescue vessel, Jack kept close to Amy, watching her with concern and wonder. What did they do to you? He asked quietly. Amy touched his arm gently. They killed me, Jack. But that wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. 3 weeks after her return to Earth, Amy stood before the United Earth Council. The large chamber was filled with government officials, military leaders, and scientists from around the world. They had gathered to hear her story and understand the implications of her transformation. Amy had spent most of those 3 weeks in a secure medical facility. Doctors ran countless tests, trying to understand what had happened to her. They confirmed she was still human, but with significant changes to her neural patterns and cellular structure. Ms. Mitchell, began the council chairperson, a stern woman with silver hair, please continue your testimony about the Zyraxian encounter and your transformation. Amy nodded. She wore a simple gray suit, her blonde hair pulled back. She looked outwardly normal, but everyone in the room knew she was not the same person who had left Earth a month ago. The precursors, as they were called, saw potential in early humans, Amy explained. They embedded dormant genetic sequences in our DNA, designed to activate under specific circumstances. The Zyraxians accidentally triggered this process when they pushed me to death and slightly beyond. And these abilities you now possess? Said a military general. Can you describe them again for the record? Amy took a deep breath. I can interface directly with most technology. I can process information at accelerated rates. My physical reflexes and healing have improved significantly, and I can sense patterns in data, in people, in the world around me that were invisible to me before. A scientist stood up. Ms. Mitchell, our tests show changes in your brain activity that would be impossible according to our understanding of human physiology, yet you insist you're still human? I am, Amy said firmly. Just an evolved version. The potential was always there in our DNA, lying dormant. I believe I'm not unique, just the first. This statement caused murmurs throughout the chamber. The idea that all humans might carry this potential was both thrilling and terrifying to those present. What about the Zyraxians? Asked another council member. Do we face immediate threat from them? Commander Nelson, who sat beside Amy, answered this one. Our intelligence suggests they've withdrawn their ships from our solar system. They're reassessing their position on Earth. Ms. Mitchell's demonstration of these abilities has given them pause. For now, Amy added. But they won't stay away. Forever. They're afraid of what humanity might become. The council chairperson leaned forward. And what exactly do you believe humanity might become, Ms. Mitchell? Amy looked around the room, meeting the eyes of various officials. Something more. The precursors saw potential in us that we've barely begun to tap. What happened to me might be just the first step. After the hearing concluded, Amy walked with Jack Nelson through the corridors of the government building. Security personnel kept their distance, both out of respect and a subtle fear of her new abilities. That went about as well as could be expected, Jack said. Though I think you scared half of them. Amy smiled slightly. Maybe they should be scared. I still don't fully understand what's happening to me. Every day I discover something new. They stopped at a large window overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Any word from Dr. Grayson? Jack asked, referring to the lead scientist studying Amy's condition. He's identified some of the changes in my DNA, Amy said. But he's still trying to understand the trigger mechanism. What exactly at the moment of death and revival caused the dormant sequences to activate? Jack placed a hand on her shoulder. And how are you dealing with all this? Amy's expression softened. Some days are better than others. I dream differently now, seeing patterns and connections even in sleep. Sometimes I worry I'm losing touch with my humanity. You're still you, Amy, Jack assured her. Different, but still the same person at your core. She nodded, grateful for his support. There's something I haven't told the council yet, something I've been experiencing the past few days. What is it? Jack asked, his voice concerned. I think it's spreading, Amy said quietly. The other night, one of the nurses in the medical facility cut herself while drawing my blood. When I helped her, our skin made contact while she was bleeding. And, Jack prompted, her wound healed instantly, and for a moment I could sense her thoughts, her memories. She felt it too. She came to me later, said she'd been able to turn on her computer without touching it. Jack's eyes widened. You're saying it's contagious? Not exactly, Amy said. More like awakening, as if my activated sequences can somehow jumpstart the same dormant potential in others. But only with direct blood contact, at least so far. They stood in silence for a moment, contemplating the implications. The council will need to know, Jack finally said. They will, Amy agreed. But first I need to understand it better. If this is really the next step in human evolution, we need to handle it carefully. As they walked toward the exit, they passed a television, showing news from around the world. Amy stopped, her attention caught by a report from a hospital in Buenos Aires. A child who had been clinically dead for several minutes had miraculously revived, showing unusual brainwave patterns afterward. It's already happening, she whispered. What is? Jack asked, looking at the screen. The awakening. It's not just me anymore. Amy turned to him, her eyes reflecting the fading sunlight. The Xeraxians were right to be worried, but for the wrong reasons. Humanity isn't dangerous because of our weapons or our aggression. We're dangerous because we're changing. They stepped outside into the cool evening air. Above them, stars were beginning to appear in the darkening sky. What do we do now? Jack asked. Amy looked up at the stars, thinking of the Xeraxians out there, and whatever remained of the mysterious precursors who had set all this in motion eons ago. We prepare, she said. The galaxy is bigger and more complex than we ever imagined, and humanity is about to take its first real steps into it. She held out her hand, and a small ball of energy formed above her palm, glowing with a soft blue light similar to the Xeraxian technology. But this wasn't alien. It was human, the next evolution of human. The Xeraxians thought they were teaching us a lesson, Amy said, watching the energy dance across her fingers. Instead, They helped us remember what we were always meant to become. In orbit above Earth, a single Zyraxian scout ship watched silently. On board, Vexnar observed the readings from the planet below, detecting the first small sparks of awakening human potential flickering to life around the globe. "It has begun," the commander said to the empty room. "The galaxy would never be the same again.